Hey guys, Wilson here. Right now we're working on a 1968 Dodge Dart. We pulled the 8 3/4 axle out of it in order for us to inboard the leaf springs. We already did that. We moved those in about 4 inches and we already did the mini tub on the axle. Now we're going to have to be cutting the axle down, narrowing it to fit those nice wide slick tires so this thing can run some quarter-mile time. I did these gears a while back. I put 410s in it with a factory posi. 30 spline axles, I think they're aftermarket axles, and at that time the car had a small block and it had a 340. The owner wants to put in a board and stroked 440, so we're going to have to swap these gears out from 410s to 355s so he can run his quarter mile and his RPMs will be where he needs it to be at the end of that quarter mile stretch. So right now we're going to be, I've already taken the axle apart except for the third member, and then we'll start measuring to cut the axle down. I want to get either 33 or 35 spline axle shafts, upgrade as much as we can to keep this axle as live as long as possible for that big block and some serious power getting put down on that quarter mile track. Alright, there she is. 410s, factory posi, actually in pretty good shape. Shame I gotta change out these gears. I just put them in here a couple months ago. So the third member's out. I don't have to worry about that right now. I do need to take off the brake clamps and cut the leaf spring perches off, so we can start out with a fresh slate with that. I did measure from the I took them on measurements, so flange to flange, third member bolt to flange on each side, as well as perch to perch, just so I have those original measurements down and I can use that as a reference to center everything up when we start cutting the axle tube. So plasma's going to be coming hot, and we'll be making this axle a little bit lighter. So custom length Mosier shafts are in. They are brand new 35 spline, freshly cut. They are going to go in this spool that just came in, as well as the 410s. I'm going to be reusing the 742 case that I geared a while back with the 410s in it. 355s are going in, 410s are coming out obviously. We have a brand new Mark Williams passenger side cap that's going to be holding these gears in place hopefully. The one thing we don't have that we are going to need is that 1350 yoke, but I can still do these gears without that yoke. Once all that's done, we'll have everything we need just about to be cutting the axle housing and making this thing shorter. We now have our 325/50 tires mounted on Billet Specialties beadlock rims. This is set in up into the wheel well, which we clearanced earlier, with plenty of room just to make sure that everything's going to clear. Use spacers, mesh everything out. Left to right, our Caltrac mount is in, as well as that solid leaf spring spacer we're going to use. Measured everything out just to see how narrow we needed. We're going to need this axle to be compared to what it is in factory form. We'll go back to the table, look at a clean axle, and compare our measurement that we need to our factory measurement. So measure as many times as you need to, so you only have to cut once, right? Our factory measurement was 57 3/4 inches from wheel mount to wheel mount. That's where the wheels are going to mount to the axle. What we now need is 49 1/8 inch from wheel mount to wheel mount. That's a difference of 8 5/8 of an inch. That means I'm going to cut 4 5/16 inch out of each side of the axle tube. So the end caps on the axle provide a great reference point
for us to mark and cut off of. Measured 2 3/4 inches from the outside of this flange to make our outboard cut here. And what I want to do is cut out this bad section of axle right here. I don't need that. This bad section of axle right here, which was pitted already. Yours may be corroded right here. I'm just going to cut out all this together, and it's really hard to see, but if you look at this axle right here, you can see where throughout the years the U-bolts have been pressing down and sort of warping that axle housing right here. So I'm going to cut this section out all together on both sides. I measured 4 5/16 inches, and right there I'm going to be cutting just right on that line. And I already took the measurement and factored in about an 1/8 inch of the cutting disc I'm going to use.
So the third member's built again with all the aforementioned glories of traction and beefiness, to include the spool and that billet cap for the carry bearing. Also, I cut the axle down. Cut that section of axle housing out of it. Here's that end cap. Basically trimmed down. It was pretty easy. I was able to just use a cutoff wheel and spin the axle housing while I cut, and I had those marks. Came out really straight. Really happy with it. So I'm going to be beveling these corners down to get a good root pass in, and then stacked passes on top of that to make this axle nice and strong. I will be using the third member installed, as well as the axle shaft set in and just hard mounted to these end caps, and that's gonna be my my jig for setting this axle straight. So we will hook everything up, set everything in, make sure the bearings turn well, and just ensure that there's no binding or anything, everything looks straight. Tack it, I'll pull the shafts out, and then we'll just kind of measure for trueness from there. But fairly simple process. All right, our end caps are welded on. We got one good root pass, 3 more passes on top of that. It's looking like it's going to be really strong. I did use the torch to preheat the axle housing so we can make sure we got real good penetration. Next, we're going to be welding on the perches underneath. It looks like from eye to eye with the new narrowing of leaf springs, it's 35 3/4 of an inch from eye to eye with the leaf spring, and I think that's going to put us half of the perch on the axle tube, and the other half's going to be on that end cap, which will be good to span that that stitched part up in the middle. That'll keep it nice and strong. Once the perches are on, we got our pinion angles figured out. We'll throw on the backbone. Hopefully put this thing underneath. I may need to get wider U-bolts because the end caps are obviously wider on the outboard sides. So wider U-bolts may be able to bend what we have, but we'll see after I take those measurements.
Majority of the welding's done. Went ahead and put some paint on it so humidity doesn't get to it. Here's the portion that was seam welded up. Here's the leaf spring perches on the underside of the axle, and then the backbone, just kind of bracing the back end of it. Also put a drain plug down on the opposite side from the ring gear on the axle housing. The outboard U-bolts, see if it'll focus here or not. Had to heat those up and bend those in, and so they're basically a permanent part of the axle now. Yeah, so all we should need now is going to be inner axle seals and some leaf spring bushings, and she should be complete after assembly of the third member and axle shafts.
Hey guys, this axle project is done. 1968 Dodge Dart A-body, 8 3/4 rear ends. We did the mini tub, we inboarded the leaf springs, we narrowed the axle, 35 spline shafts, full spool, nice wide tires on this car now. Everything looks like it's going to clear and fit just fine. It's just up to the owner to figure out his own stance. He's going to install the fluid. He's got a big black 440 going in, bored and stroked out to something, hopefully a really stout transmission. And I will put down a list of everything that happened to that we did to this car. I'll put that list at the end of the video. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this answers any questions for somebody else trying to do this. Hit me up in the comments, let me know if you think you would have done something different, something you liked, something you disliked. Appreciate your time. I'm Wilson, and this was fun.